Pat yourself on the back because you are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose.
How you doing this morning, Jerrod?
Blessed, Mr. Ollie. I got my fancy new shirts on. I'm excited. I feel good. It's summertime. I love summertime, dude. Shirts off. Getting that sun, that vitamin D is strong.
Amen, man. It's my favorite time too. I'm a firebender at heart, man. Fire in my soul. I love the heat.
Yeah, everything's good down in Florida.
Oh yeah, as you can imagine, we got the heat here as well, and it's I've actually been hitting yoga and meditation, not only shirtless but pantless as well. Just the boxers on in the sunroom,
dude,
man. Getting that summer tan going.
I love it. Bro, what is going on with all them books in the background? Is that just blocking the light, or is that like your new bookshelf set up?
It's my new bookshelf because my regular bookshelf's already full, man. I got to get another one. All this knowledge.
I see one called The Lion right above your head. What's that about?
Oh, so it's actually about this boy in India. It's based on a true story, and he gets lost from his parents at like 5 years old on this crazy like train. And he like hopped off the train to do something as like a 5-year-old to like try and get this candy or something. And yeah, it's wild. I actually haven't read the whole thing. So I've been trying this new method that people do with not reading books cover to cover and trying to use books as a tool and just extract like 3 main ideas. It's been difficult because I'm so conditioned. You know, I think we all are conditioned to read it cover to cover. But I've been giving it a shot, and it's actually been pretty nice of like going back to books and being like, all right, like let me be like a gold miner here and find like the 3 nuggets of the book.
Dude, that's freaking hilarious because I didn't know that was a thing. But, dude, that's how I got through college and high school. I never read no books cover to cover. I was actually teaching people this. They're like, dude, you got an A on that paper. How'd you do it? I'd be like, bro, I read the first 3 chapters, 3 in the middle, and 3 at the end. And then I just summarized the rest of this shit. And that's funny. That's a method. I'm a man ahead of my time, Ollie.
I guess so, man. Look at that. You already knew to be a book gold digger.
That's what that's called, huh? I was just honestly being lazy and didn't feel like reading a whole goddamn book. Especially when you got me reading some stuff I ain't interested in. Like, no offense, but you assign me some Shakespeare stuff, there's no chance that's getting read.
Yeah, that's a lot.
0.
Well, here's the thing too: is we only retain like 20% of everything we read. We have so much stuff going through our minds every day that even if we do read a book cover to cover, we're only going to retain so much of it. So why not look at the table of contents, look at the chapters that really stand out to you, and look out for like, all right, what are the key ideas of this book? So I've been trying to get a little better at that because it just seems to be more effective.
Man, sounds good. Anybody that wants to offer something like that, I'm in for. I can read less and get more out of it. Although now that I've aged, man, I actually enjoy reading more.
Yeah, if it's like a fictional book or a story.
I don't read any fiction. 0.
Really?
I only read nonfiction.
Well, nonfiction, I think.
Well, I take that
back. That's a good tactic for it.
The Alchemist might be. I mean, I guess maybe I read some fictional book, but they have a read. Like, I don't read no like sci-fi type stories or anything like that.
Yeah.
Although I probably should, because who knows, that might be real too. I might have thought it was science fiction. Now it's real fiction, or now it's nonfiction.
Right. Yeah, fiction's good. Fiction's good for the mind.
I watch that on TV. All right, brother, let's get into it this week. I'm excited for this topic. Uncommon amongst the uncommon.
Ooh, episode 116.
116?
Dang.
Dude, we were just chugging along. We're going to be at 200 before you know it.
I know. Wow. Uncommon amongst the uncommon. Okay, so, Jerrod, what does that even mean?
Well, first off, I got to give props to my man, Dwayne, who recently came through one of our law enforcement classes. And you know, like everything else we do for people, Ollie, it challenges them. And I challenged him during those 3 days. And at the end of it, he told me, he's like, dude, you are uncommon amongst the uncommon. And thank you for making me better, basically. And I like, oh, I love that. So I threw that on the t-shirt. We're going to use that as our business slogan for 2022 to really challenge people to become uncommon amongst the uncommon. So what does it mean to me? That means that you're willing to walk in your own path and your own greatness. You know, touching back to, we had Courtney on last week, and that was her superpowers, if she could remind every person that they could be great. And to me, that's what being uncommon amongst the uncommon means, is you're not afraid to step into your greatness and to walk your own path. What do you think?
I like that. I think that it just means not conforming, not doing the status quo just because that's what everybody else is doing. And it's so easy to just fall into social influence, right? But really following your heart and following what you believe is going to be best for you. And I think it's just a different way of saying what you're saying, of really stepping into your greatness and not being so concerned about, oh, I got to do the blueprint. You know, go to grade school, go to college, get a degree, get a job, work for the rest of my life, 401k, retire, get a house, have kids. You know what I mean? Like, make your own path.
Yeah. So, and I think it can be different for everybody. Like how you're uncommon amongst uncommon, it can be different than how I am. But there has to be, right? It doesn't say uncommon amongst the common. I think that's much easier to obtain. But when you're uncommon amongst the uncommon, that means you're even more in tune to what it is you want out of life. You're more in tune to what you can give back to the world than even those that are not common as far as takers, even those that are mainstream. And to me, that it really comes back to, you got to know what you want. And you got to know what your gifts are and where your talents are, and how do you tap into that, make the most of it. That's what would make you uncommon. Right? Denying it, going, just like you said, going with the flow with what everybody else is doing. There's nothing uncommon about that. And sadly, to me, there's also nothing living big in that either. Right? I mean, no, you're not living it to your full potential. So that, to me, that's what it means, man. When you're uncommon amongst the uncommon, you really stand out because you're embracing your life and taking ownership of your life and responsibility for your life and making the most of it.
So what would you say are some examples in your life, Jerrod, that really set you apart, that bring that uncommon amongst the uncommon for you?
Should I think just like today, let's just take example here, man. Like Andrea and I, you know, we're about 10 days into kind of living off the grid at a small property we've developed. I mean, there's many times we're only two up there, living off solar, no other real energy sources for us. So we got to manage all that. And, you know, and you're talking to a city kid here. Like, none of this stuff is normal for me or what I ever grew up with. So I think that's a huge one, right? Like, at my age, many of my peers are still trying to acquire things and, you know, putting another 10 years onto their career to pad their retirements and stuff, whereas we're walking away from all that and selling houses and moving to a more simplistic life because we realize we want something different and something uncommon, and not everybody understands it. And a lot of people think we're idiots or nuts, probably, to be honest. But I mean, right now, I think my day-to-day life shows that we're pretty uncommon.
For sure.
But cool. Like, look at the benefits of being uncommon, dude. I wake up and I hear turkeys right outside my house, and I walk with them in the mornings, and like, there's so many things that I can't experience if I were to continue to do what I've always been doing. What about you? What do you find that you're doing that's making you uncommon?
Well, I think I feel that I was kind of born into uncommon against the uncommon amongst the uncommon of first of all being like Palestinian Mexican. You know, I've only met two other people on the planet that have that exact like mix up, and being a first generation American on my father's side, a Muslim and Catholic. So I always felt like I kind of was born into some of that. But I would say like along my journey that now my true passions are pretty uncommon amongst the uncommon because there's so much contrast with them of like, you know, I have this side of me that's very spiritual and meditates every day and does yoga very often and is full of love and compassion, and also have this other side of me that absolutely loves martial arts and loves to fight and loves that competitive fierce fire side, wants to get in the cage and, you know, knock skulls. So I think that's a big part of how I've created my life to be uncommon amongst the uncommon, is to really experience the vast spectrum of emotions and ways of being.
Yeah, and I think you sell yourself short, my humble brother. And I think that's one of the things that makes people unique and their being uncommon is that we don't walk around and tell everybody we're uncommon amongst uncommon. You don't have, there's no, there's no flag you carry, there's no tattoo you get. You do it through actions. Right. And like I look at you and yes, you run businesses and yes, you fight, but you also do yoga and you meditate. And you know what I mean? Like you do so many things that are opposite. That is part of your power. And what makes you uncommon is you can balance them. Right. And I think that's one of the joys of living your life to its best is you're going to inspire somebody else to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And by you, like, because you're atypical, like say even in the MMA world, you're atypical in that you read a ton and you study self-improvement outside the cage as far as meditation and yoga and fitness and trying to do the splits, right? So MMA fighting is already uncommon. Not everybody will do that. But within that realm of uncommon, you stand out as being even more different because you're not trying to conform and be like the stereotypical fighter.
Mm.
And that comes from your sense of self and your sense of why are you doing this, right? Would you agree that if your fighting career, your path would be different if you were looking at it to try to be like every other fighter?
100%. It'd be very different.
But and instead you're doing it to be the best Ali. Fighting is just a vessel we do that through.
Yeah. And I think a big part of it is when you truly do what it is that you want to do in life, that's what makes you uncommon amongst the uncommon. And I've been really blessed and privileged to be around very supportive people throughout most of my life, other dreamers who have, you know, uplifted my dreams more than people bringing them down, and been like, you know what? I am going to start my own business. You know what? I am going to do MMA fighting. You know what? I am going to do yoga and meditate and spirituality, and being approached by people like you of like, hey, you know what? I have this idea for a podcast, and not being scared of, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if this takes me off the path? Well, I'm not going to be common anymore. And for a lot of things in my life, there is a lot of fear of being uncommon amongst the uncommon, right? Going to the cannabis industry from oil and gas. I remember for 2 years, I did not peep a word about what I was doing. And I mean, that's hard to think about compared to today. Now I'm very active on social media and always sharing what I have going on in my life. But for those 2 years, it was like I was so scared to do something uncommon because I knew what the common belief system was in that conservative oil and gas world. So for some of our listeners, Jerrod, that might feel that within that calling to be uncommon amongst the uncommon, to actually take action towards their dreams, but have that bitch voice holding them back, have that doubt and fear overshadow this desire to be uncommon amongst the uncommon. What do you think are kind of the first steps to start doing that?
Well, I think first off, understand that you're not alone. Everybody, even the most courageous person, has doubts and negative self-talk and limiting beliefs. That does not only reside to you. So first off, quit feeling sorry for yourself about it. Like, it is part of human nature. We all have it. Two, I love that Courtney talked about this on her episode. Minimizing the delay between feeling inspired, feeling like you got your purpose, feeling like you need to move, and taking action to where your mind can come in and talk you out of it. So act quick, right? If you're going to make mistakes, you're going to learn, do them quick. Like, why prolong it? It's just like the Band-Aid, right? Like, you can rip it off super nice and slow and feel every hair get ripped and hurt, or you can just rip the sumbitch off and get it over with, right? So to me, that's a big thing is, one, realize negative fear and stuff is fine. We all have it. But two, take action, right? If there's something you're feeling called to do or something more you're wanting in life, do it. Right? And then that, for me, that goes to the next question. Like, why do I desire to be uncommon? I can tell you, ever since I was a little kid, and if you read my book, I've talked about this a ton in there, I never wanted to be like everybody else. Being like everybody else seemed awful to me. And I got to a point in my adult life where I looked around and I was like, man, you're pretty much like everybody else. You go to work, you have a family, your kids, you got all your kids' activities. And that wasn't me living to my fullest, right? It wasn't me living to my best. And it's almost counterintuitive what you would think. When you start to live to your best and you invest in yourself, a lot of times people think that's selfish, right? Like, oh, you should be doing more for your kids. You should be doing this, not working out as much, not doing this as much, so you have more time for that. And I think the opposite, when you invest in yourself and make yourself your best, you're better for everybody else. And for me, a lot of this goes back to deciding to take that first fight, the first MMA fight in April of, I think, 2014 maybe. You know, I was 42 years old, way older than most people that are going to do their first fight. All kinds of people tell me why I shouldn't do it, the craziness, blah, 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 blah. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to see if I could do it. And because I believed in myself then and I chose a different path, now all of this has resulted from it, the podcast, the books, the relationships. And that's why I desire it. I don't want to go to my grave with people going like, Jerrod died. Can't say I remember that guy. You know what I mean? Like, that is the worst thing to think. Like, I get 80 some years on this planet at most, and to not make anybody else better, to not do anything that people remember, would be heartbreaking. So that's why I desire to be uncommon. So what does that mean? It means I take some pain. It means I do things that may not work out all the time. It means, like you and I talk about, we're going to work out, we're going to go on runs, and we're going to physically do stuff that makes our bodies hurt a little bit. But it's part of who we are. It's part of how we become better. And we're going to get up and speak in front of crowds and maybe be nervous and maybe hope we say the right word. But our message is so important that it's worth taking the risk of not being perfect to deliver it. Because if we don't, Ali, if we don't step into our uniqueness and our talents, who's gonna? And more importantly, if we don't do it and somebody somewhere needed to hear from you today, now they don't get to. And to me, those feelings of the big light's coming and I know my time's near, wondering, maybe I should have wrote a book. If only I wasn't afraid people would think I'm a moron. Or maybe, I should have had a podcast, because I do love telling stories and having fun with people. But I was just so worried that my voice didn't sound right. Or maybe, man, I should have told Ali I really loved him because he helped make me a better person. But, I don't know, maybe he just wouldn't have felt the same way. That's why I do what I do, to be uncommon. And it's not because I want to just stand out if people say, look, he's uncommon. I want them to feel it. And at the end of my life, I want them to go, man, I'm glad we crossed paths. Because the crazy shit he did let me know that other crazy shit I could do was possible.
I love that. And it's, in a sense, I believe that it's selfish for you not to step into your true potential, to your true uncommon, because a lot of people around you won't ever be their best version of themselves until you become yours. You know, who knows how many people you truly inspired by taking that first fight? Who knows how many people you inspired by actually writing your book, by approaching me and being like, you know what, I want to do this podcast. I mean, that ripple effect continues and will continue even after you're gone, after we're gone, of creating something that can live beyond us. And it can be something as complex as like a podcast where you're coming on every week, or simply something as, you know, taking care of your body. You never know, walking on the beach with your shirt off, you might inspire someone who's overweight to look at you and be like, you know what, I want that. Right? For you just being you. The other day, some freaking kid at Smoothie King, man, I was driving through the drive-through and he's like, this teenager, he's like, sir, so like, no offense at all, but like, did you lose a bet to get that haircut? And I was like, did you just say that to your customer? You're talking shit about my hair? And he's like, oh, like, I didn't mean offensive. It just kind of like looks like a mullet. And my friend like, and it was funny because it was kind of him talking shit, but just the next day, I got this guy come up to me at the gym and he's like, you probably hear this all the time, man, but immaculate hair. I love your hair. And I have a pretty uncommon haircut, you know, to where, and I've had people tell me like, oh, dude, like I love that mullet look, but like I couldn't do that. You know, like I don't have the confidence to do that. And it's something as simple as a haircut. It's how you wear your hair. But I personally, I love this look. For my fight, I did the braids in the front, kind of mullet thing in the back, called it the bullet. I was like, dude, I think it looks badass. Got the rocking the bullet, you know, like this is me. And yeah, it's uncommon, but it makes me feel empowered. And when you can in any way be uncommon amongst the uncommon, that's your special sauce. That's your differentiator. And believe it or not, people want that. People want to see you doing that because guess what? It's going to empower them. It's going to give them more permission on their end of like, oh, Ali has that freaking crazy bullet haircut. Like, well, I could get a cool haircut, you know, like, oh, Jerrod just wrote a book and, you know, left the police force and now has his own businesses and stuff. Like, I can do that, you know? So we have a responsibility not only to ourselves, but the people that we love around us to find our own uncommon amongst the uncommon, to find our own special sauce, to find what really makes us unique. Because here's the thing, here's a fact. You are one of a kind. There's been no other human being in history that has your exact DNA, that has your exact makeup, that has your exact life experience in this moment in time where we live. You were literally one of a kind, special edition. There never has been anyone like you, and there never will be anyone exactly like you again. So what are you going to do? With that, what are you going to do to make your impact in the world? And I think that's a question that we all need to ask ourselves.
And I think you can ask yourself that daily, right? What am I doing today to make the world better? Might change some of our actions we take or some of the things we don't do. So, Ali, if you want to, you identify your power, you identify your talents, or maybe you don't, maybe you're not sure. How do you obtain being uncommon amongst uncommon people? How do you get that?
I think it first starts with finding out what you love to do, what you truly enjoy, what brings you happiness, joy, satisfaction, what brings you to that present moment, like we were talking about in last week's episode, of what do you do that makes time pass by? And when you can find these things, if you don't know what that is yet, you need to be trying different things, playing music, playing different sports, studying different subjects, reading different books. Find things that really click with you. And then when you find these things, you begin to really deepen your depth of them. So like me, for example, I've always been a fiery type of person, right? I mean, my background being like spicy food, fire, stuff that's kind of scary. I've always loved the thrill. I'm an adventurous person. So things like public speaking, that always excited me. So when I found Toastmasters, I was like, oh man, like it's a little scary, but that feeling that I got after working hard and preparing and crafting a speech and getting up to speak, I love that. And what did that lead to? That led things to actually having speaking engagements, to having a podcast, to having my own business, making videos on YouTube and on social media, right? Other things that's scary that I really enjoyed, fighting, MMA, martial arts when I was a little kid, wrestling through high school and a little in college. And I found these things that I'm like, oh man, when I'm training, I forget about time. It brings me to purpose. It brings me to what really makes me unique, and really deepening those things, you're going to create your unique life that is around all these things. So that's what I think is like finding things that really make you present. Because when I'm giving a speech, I'm there. I'm in there. I'm not going to be thinking about what I got to do tomorrow. When I'm training, when I'm fighting, same thing, right? When I'm trying to meditate, when I'm doing yoga, same thing. All these things that really make time fly by, then bring you to the present moment. That's what I believe. When you find these things, that's part of your intuition telling you like, hey, you need to spend more time on this. You love this. You love the way you feel when you're doing this. And when you commit to doing those in depth, amazing things in your life will start to happen that make you uncommon amongst the uncommon and that inspire others.
Yeah, and I'd even say to our community that's listening, if you're not sure, take a minute. One of the exercises I love to do is to write down. If you and I have talked about this, Ali, if money were no obstacle and time was no limit, what would you be doing today? What would you do? And then start working towards doing those things. Like I can tell you, and this isn't to brag or to be arrogant, but literally this last 10 days is exactly what we want to do. We wake up and I do what I want to do. Now, how did I get there? Well, I made some smart financial moves. I worked hard for 21 years to set myself up for there. But during that time, we had our eye on where did we want to end up. So part of how do you become uncommon amongst the uncommon is you got to know what it is you want to do and how you can do it. And then work your ass off to get there. One of the things for us is we watched all kinds of YouTubers and stuff that were living this kind of lifestyle, and we're like, they can do it. Can't be that hard. So let's start putting ourselves in a position where we have total freedom in our life. Because that's what I value more than anything, is just completely being free. So we made changes to allow that to happen. So when
I think that's, I was just going to say, I think that's what we're all truly after is freedom, right? It's not really money or material things, but it's the feelings that money and material things can bring. And a lot of that feeling is feeling free to do what you want, because so many of us believe that we have to, wake up in the morning and do these things, when at the end of the day, we have the freedom to choose what we want to do in each moment in time.
or not to do.
That's a choice as well.
Absolutely. Sometimes people are like, well, I have no choice. No, you have a choice. Your choice is to not have a choice. Still a choice. So what to me is, you got to know what you want, and that's how you obtain it, right? That's how I obtain becoming uncommon, is I step into what it is I really want to do and how I want to be uncommon. And then you got a responsibility with it. Right? To me, I feel like my gifts to the world and my contributions and what I can do that are unique to me that make things better is to share it. So it wouldn't be complete for me to do uncommon activities and then not share those with the world. So to me, that's one of my uniqueness is that I do the activities, but then I also have the gift to write, speak, and share it with the world. And that brings it full circle. Not everybody in the community, like some people are like, hey, I just do this, but I'm not, like, the public speaking piece or the coaching other people piece isn't for me. And that's completely fine. And that's okay, right? We got to be able to accept that what makes Ali uncommon doesn't have to be what makes me uncommon. And the truth is, when we all accept our own uniqueness and embrace it, and matter of fact, I don't want to be the same as Ali. If Ali thought the exact same way as me and had all the exact same experience as me, and I brought him on the podcast because he would just be exactly like me, do you know how fucking boring that would be?
Super boring.
Super boring. And I'm not that boring a guy, but if there's two of me on one show, that's pretty damn boring. But like, if you look, somehow we get tricked in life to think we want to surround ourselves with all the people that are just like us. When in fact, I challenge you to bring people around you that are completely different.
I think that's a big part of how you truly become uncommon amongst the uncommon. Surrounding yourself with people who are different than you. That's huge.
And looking to learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like I tell you guys, this is always a progress in life. And Ollie and I have shared this many times, that we grow with the community as much as you grow with us. And we're blessed to be able to serve you. And part of that is, if you'd had this conversation with mid-20-year-old Jerrod, that arrogant, knowing everything dude would have told you completely different answers. But I also tell you this, man, today's Jerrod would have whooped his ass back then. I could beat up that one. So you got to allow yourself to grow and not be so caught up in what you thought was supposed to be has to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that have made me uncommon and make you uncommon, is that we grow and do different things. We don't become attached to, well, this is who I've been, so this is who I have to be. This is my identity. No. None of those identities are me. It's who I am today.
Yeah. So we want your uncommon. We want your weird. We want your uniqueness. We want your growth. And a big part of that growth comes from being your uncommon.
And the world needs it, right? Your perspective, your unique talents, your views on something may be exactly what the world is missing and what solves a problem that we've had for years.
Yep. We have enough conformity. We have enough common.
Yeah, and there's a reason it's called common. It means there's a lot of it. So I appreciate you, Ali. Man, you know who else I appreciate is our guest on Patreon, our supporters on Patreon who really help us make this show possible and continue to spread the purposeful living message around the world. So if you are interested in that, please jump over to our Patreon page. There's memberships with many different levels that allow us to continue to make this happen. So thank you to those that are already there. And for those of you that are going to join up here in the near future.
Thank you.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.